If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the EBCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluffs. Details are in the description.
Our goal here is to help our ABA Business Challenges members be stable and successful and profitable. And one of the problems that I've seen is financial stability in the ABA market. When it is lacking, it is catastrophic. Just a quick little anecdotal tidbit. We worked with an ABA therapy company who had some issues with insurance billing. It was a multi-location company, had 60, 70 employees, depending on how many RBTs had left and how many they were bringing in. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that whole concept. So pretty large company, but not tiny, right? But privately owned, BCBA and RBT who own the place, and focused on clinical stuff. And they're there to help. And there were a series of events that led to basically just their complete and total implosion as an organization. And those events some of them were out of their control, but some of them could have been prevented. And all of it could have been overcome with some financial safety net and having that war chest built up where if I've got an emergency, I already know what I'm going to do. So having that backup plan, having that disaster recovery plan, your incident response plan, right? So just like we talk about with your compliance, your cybersecurity, making sure that you at least have a plan on where you're going to go when a certain failure occurs. This company hired a consultant, an operational consultant to come in and help them with their finances. And they had an issue that amounted to over $500,000 in revenue that was on hold due to a billing issue with their practice management system. There were some things were entered incorrectly. They had to go back and get that corrected. And basically they were short over $500,000 in their bank account, which makes payroll is difficult enough to meet every week. And getting your bills paid is already hard enough without having a $500,000 chunk out of your proverbial rear end missing. And out of desperation, this operational consultant went and got them a hard money loan, which is, you can recover from that, but a hard money loan is basically the loan shark, the payday loan version of the business market. It's never in any situation do I ever recommend that anybody does that. You're better off going back and negotiating with your landlord and paying rent late than you are taking out a hard money loan. And it made things extremely difficult. They ended up having to close down locations. And then when they get stacked up with other issues, not having proper cybersecurity in place, and then they got hacked. And then that all just snowballed into this major downsizing of their company. And now they're just barely getting by, right? And neither owner is taking a paycheck. And it's just an all over nightmare. So a few months ago, I met Ethan, and we're always pulling new resources into our group. So we've got these problems that we know we need to solve. I'm not equipped to come in and help somebody manage their finances. It's just not my area. And we have a lot of people on our group that are former ABA owners who have had several exits on our ABA impact team. We have people like Erica Kinnebrew. She's brilliant, right? She can sit down and help you with your finances and come up with your plan. The problem is gathering information and being able to track that information. And then the second problem is those financial safety nets, having a line of credit open, having something where you're not going to have to go to a loan shark to get that money. You already have a pre-planned line of credit at your local bank. You already have maybe an SBA loan or something conventional where you have your startup money coming from or whatever. And then managing those costs and keeping those things straight as you're getting started up or as you're rebuilding your already existing business and getting organized and going to that next level. When I met Ethan, within 3 minutes of our phone conversation, I said, oh my God, we have to do a web. We have to get you involved in the group. We need you in here to start talking about this, because what they've developed at Ethan's company, Flychain, is focused on the ABA therapy business. It's basically an accounting system that you can actually replace your QuickBooks with, right? They understand the billing. They don't do the billing. You still need to do whatever you're doing with your billing. This is a financial management platform, and it also comes paired with like that third safety net, right? Get your line of credit, have that on backup, but these guys can actually help you predict and forecast cash flow issues, when you're going to be short on payroll, and they can actually help you with that financing. So really excited to have Ethan here. I cannot tell you how important it is that understand your finances, that you're tracking everything from cost to income. You need to know this if you're a business owner. It's not all about the money. I understand that. But Zig Ziglar, I'm probably aging myself here, but back in the 80s, Zig Ziglar was a big business book writer, speaker, and he had a great way of saying it. It was, money is not the most important thing in the world, but it is reasonably close to oxygen. So this is something that you definitely need to pay attention to. It's all about helping the kids. It's all about the clinical stuff. But if you are broke, you are not going to be able to help anybody. So Ethan, really excited to have you here today. Tell us about Flychain.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to join this webinar and group. I always like to start off with just a quick kind of intro on Flychain, why we're doing this, and the impact we've had. And then this is not meant to be a sales pitch for Flychain. This is meant to educate you on a lot of the things that we've uncovered, problems that we've seen, solutions that we've built, but really things to pay attention to. I also mentioned I put together a little presentation. Like, this will not be death by PowerPoint. And by all means, please ask questions, because this is often an area that we find a lot of business owners don't get into ABA therapy because they have an accounting and finance degree, right? They get in because they care about people. And really what we're trying to do here is educate you, and we're there for you on that whole financial side of the fence. So I'm sure if you have questions, other folks in the chat will have that exact same question. So please don't hesitate to throw it in there. But quick introduction. I'm Ethan, one of the co-founders and CEO of Flychain. And we've been in business for about 3 years. And we started this business. All of our backgrounds are actually like traditional finance, worked at a bank in their credit department, traditional finance and financial technology. But why we're doing this is we wanted to take that expertise around small to medium-sized lending, business, financing, banking, accounting, and bring it to the healthcare universe. And really what we saw is, let's pick a spot in healthcare. And we have some personal reasons why we're working in ABA therapy, but we also saw that you have the craziest cash flow issues we've ever seen. And when we started our journey at Flychain, our mission is to help democratize access to fairly priced capital, button up your finances so you can spend more time running your business, hiring people, seeing patients, caring for them, and never have to worry about this side of the fence again. So when we started lending to customers, and we did that in this form of advanced payment on insurance claims. So what we saw in the ABA universe was businesses have very light assets on their balance sheet. You don't often own real estate or an x-ray machine like another healthcare provider would. So a bank really doesn't lend. And we'll talk about some things later on. The only access we saw is what Derek mentioned, is these really predatory kind of payday lenders. They're called like merchant cash advance lenders in the business world. And they charge insanely predatory rates. We're talking 40 to 100% interest. And so we said, hey, we know a lot about small and medium-sized business lending, banking, payments, accounting. Let's start by creating a credit product for the ABA therapy universe to help bridge cash flow issues. So the classic example where we started, you have, I don't know, $100,000 outstanding, and you need that money today for whatever reason. Maybe Change Healthcare happens, or just there's a delay in billing, or maybe you wanted to hire another person. It's going to increase your payroll. We're able to bring that, $100,000 outstanding forward, and you pay us back, over a 4-month period. Won't get too in the weeds there, but just know we've now funded over 200 ABA therapy providers through this. And it just helps them get through seasonality that we just saw coming off of the holiday season, where revenues are usually down. Deductible season is here. Oftentimes our customers are down 10, 15% in revenue. You might have some cash flow issues, and we're there to solve that. We have since built a full financial operating system. And our goal and mission here is to make sure that you're happy, you're healthy, you're saving money, you're developing cash balances, you're planning your capital strategy the right way. And it's all specifically designed for the ABA therapy universe. universe. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen and kind of walk you through a few things. So what is Flychain? I mentioned capital. So we're lending, we probably lend around $3 million a month, really just helping our customers bridge those cash flow issues so they don't have to go outside the reservation, as we say, and get one of these really predatory loans. And we see oftentimes the interest being so high, if you get one of those kind of last minute because you need to make payroll, you're in this like predatory cycle of debt. We hate merchant cash advances. They're the bane of our existence. We love working with our customers to help them through those rough patches, those blips in the radar, as we call them. We've funded over 200, and we used to pull like bank data and accounting data. Out of those 200, 95% of the time, like the accounting data didn't make sense to us. Most folks run QuickBooks, which is like a square peg in a round hole when it comes to healthcare. So we've actually built a replacement specific to this universe, which I'll talk about. And it really gives our customers a much more granular view of their finances as it relates to the things that are important to running an ABA therapy provider. Just to, like I said, not a sales pitch by any stretch. We do valuation services then. Once we have your, perfectly accurate financial data, we have some cool banking partnerships. If you're using a community bank in Nebraska that's not really doing much for you, we have great options and partners there. Savings, we built Rocket Money for your business. So looking at every dollar you spend and trying to save you and optimize your margin, and some cool analytics down the line. So that's Flychain in a nutshell. Always happy to follow up, give a demo of our platform. We now have over 100 ABA therapy providers that we're running their books for. We're lending to them, setting up these resting lines of credit, which we'll talk more about. And just know that this is kind of designed for the ABA therapy universe. We've been in this world for 3 years and have seen everything at this point. So with that, I'll just turn to today's topic of conversation, and it's managing cash flows, and it's really like strategic financial planning and a guide. And we've seen a lot of different flavors of this. So wanted to use this opportunity to educate. So we always say clean books is where the journey starts with Flychain. And it might seem counterintuitive. It's often not what we see our ABA therapy owners thinking of when they first get started. We know that there's a lot of upfront costs. You have to get credentialed. You have to develop a marketing plan and hire people, which is obviously difficult, nowadays. And so there's a lot of things that tend to take that big priority. One thing that we're really trying to stress is go into this journey, whether you're just getting started, you're 2 years in, with plans. And the best way to develop these plans is having the data from which to make those decisions. So readiness for audits, simplified tax prep. We're approaching tax filing season. It always feels like tax filing season because people do extensions and stuff. But for us, audits, and our customers get audited enough as is by the healthcare universe. We're saying do not get audited by the IRS. That's an entirely different animal. Just from table stakes, we say clean books, just really prudent to have. The next kind of phase of that is visibility into your profitability. And so why we stress this is it's really difficult to make hiring decisions, expansion decisions, if you're not understanding, am I making money off of this specific service line or in this location? And one thing that we really obsess about here at Flychain is taking a really granular view at every dollar going in, making sure that you're profitable for this specific CPT code by pairing the revenue data with your payroll data and seeing who is the employee that provided that. How long did the session last? What's their hourly salary? And so now understanding kind of the apples to apples revenue profile of your business. So really understanding what's making your business tick, because you can't really improve unless you know where the problems are. And then going full circle here, clean books enable you to get access to better capital. And so what I mean by that is a bank is going to need to look at your financials, the Small Business Administration. If you ever wanted to take an equity investment or perhaps sell your business down the line, you need all this data buttoned up. And I didn't kind of mention this personal anecdote here, but we really started this because my father, he was a dentist. And during the pandemic, I moved home to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I filled out his Paycheck Protection Program application. He did not have really any financials. And so that was difficult for me to fill out the PPP loan. But it was really the sale. He got a 20% discount because he didn't have 3 years of button-up financials. So having your clear picture of your financials is not only beneficial for you to run the business, but also accessing credit, accessing an equity investment, or at some point in time, perhaps retiring or selling your business. All of this, we say, is the heartbeat of your business. Some of the things that we always like to highlight is these are questions that if you don't have a clear answer on, we like to say you probably should, or work with us and we can help you. And just to highlight a few without reading these, do you know your cash position? This is so incredibly important from our lens, because how much money you have in your bank account is really going to dictate like how long you can survive if things happen. We like to always say, do you have 3 payrolls in your bank account? That's typically what we recommend as best practices. Easier said than done. We're not naive, but we say that because change healthcare can happen. We'd also, many change healthcares happen all the time. Like just payers decide not to pay you. They're going to play games. That's how they make their money. And so having that little safety net is pretty important, and understanding your cash position and what those upcoming expenses are and planning for it is really critical. The other thing that I really like to highlight here are those top performing services. And on the flip side of that is, which services are not performing, and having a more granular view of, okay, my speech therapy versus occupational therapy, which is driving profitability, which payers do I have the most margin in? And is my margin here subsidizing my Medicaid where I'm not really making a whole lot? Having a really good picture of profitability and where you can then expand to. Maybe you want to expand with Blue Cross and those patients because they're your best payer, as an example. So it's really just like getting all of this data in a very informed format so you can make those informed decisions rather. Audited tomorrow. I hate to like scare people, but audits terrify everyone. We see audits cause material breaks in cash flow as business owners. And so we always want to say, like, when an auditor comes, you're going to have your financial data and be able to pair that with a lot of that billing data that they're going to be auditing. I always like to say, tax ready. We're approaching tax season. The last thing we want are people like rushing to the finish line to get that, because that could cause problems. Like you might file things incorrectly and then the IRS will audit you, or maybe you're just not paying attention to it. And there's some cool tax strategy and savings that you can actually experience here if done correctly. So these are just some of the questions, that we like to ask our prospects, potential customers, or current customers. And if you don't have these answers, we want to make sure that you do at some point. Any questions, by all means, please throw them into the chat. As I continue here, this is obviously a pretty detailed slide, but the goal here is we like to say the best offense is a good defense. And what I mean by that is really when it comes to everything we've talked about, accessing capital. So we love setting up our customers with basically a resting line of credit for that rainy day. And you generally want to get this set up before there's an issue, because then you're scrambling and you'll often get ripped off. So we like to say the best offense is a good defense. Set yourself up with this access to capital so that when issues arise, you're not scrambling and you have the solution in place that is not going to put you out of business. It's going to help very seamlessly solve whatever blip in the radar you might have. The other thing about best offense is a good defense. That's about data and planning and budgeting and forecasting. And so what I mean by that is the offense here is a good defense of planning. Let's take some time to really understand what's making my business tick through your financial data, and then have a plan for that offensive, if you will. So does that require expansion? Do you want to open another location? Do you want to buy another location? Do you just want to make a hire? All of those decisions, unless kind of thought out, we've seen our 100 plus platform customers misstep historically when it comes to this. And with our kind of guidance and platform, the goal there is, okay, I can actually hire 2 more RBTs or BCBAs because I have this cash balance, this access to credit, my duration on the repayment is XYZ, and it takes this long, this is how much, okay, I need to bridge X amount of money for me to achieve that growth. Once again, a lot of this is, I'm speaking a little bit more like nebulous, if that makes sense, but it's really about understanding every dollar that goes in and out of your business and what does a dollar mean today for what it will mean tomorrow. Another thing, like in terms of the forecasting and budgeting, I can't tell you how often, especially when we see like earlier stage ABA therapy providers get started with not much of a budget or a forecast, or how are you going to get from $0 to $1 million? And you can say we're going to get to $1 million, but what's the plan there? How many people do you need? There's a lot of other costs associated with starting an ABA therapy practice, right? You're going to have to get credentialed. That can take quite some time. Having a budget And we always like to say, whatever that budget is, increase it by 20 to 25% because you're going to underestimate some of these costs or the time it takes to get some of these things live. And so we always like to say budgeting and forecasting, the best way to do that is off of your real data. We have market data that we can bring in to show you, okay, what should I be paying my employees, or what should I be spending on a marketing standpoint, or what is my ROI on that marketing spend? So you actually know as you're developing this budget and forecast, your numbers are in line with what's working in the market. So contingency plan, that is pretty important from our lens. Right now, Q4, and specifically now, we've been very busy. And that's a function of holiday season, right? A lot of folks aren't seeing as many patients. Our customers, they've set up that resting line of credit. Yeah, they have to make payroll, and we're lending into this because their revenues are muted. And we know that it'll come back around. It's just, this is a slow time of year. Working and having contingency plans with folks that understand your business, understand the nuances of that business. And it's crazy. Some of our customers are really busy during the summer. Some of our customers are really not busy during the summer, and it's all dependent on, are they seeing people in school, centers, in home, where's the availability there? So just know that when we work with a customer, understanding like the nature of their specific business, and then having defined contingency plans when those specific things occur, like a seasonal push as an example. Some of the other things, just from a budgeting standpoint, I always like to, I'll bang you over the head again with it. Whatever the budget you think you need, it's probably 20% higher. And there's a lot of capital out there, but it's hard to secure that capital, especially when you're in your early days. And so that's a good segue here to what are those capital options. And we like to say there's 4 buckets of customer profiles. You've got to get your startup stage. That's that 0 to 2 years in business. 0 to 2 years is undoubtedly the most difficult kind of portion of the journey as it relates to getting. Banks don't really lend. Non-bank lenders don't really lend if you haven't been in business for 2 years. And so the capital options here are so limited. That's why we really stress the budgeting and having an understanding of how much money do I need today to actually build a successful ABA therapy business is pretty crucial as you're getting started and in those first 2 years. The nice thing is, once you're after post 2 years, the non-bank lending world opens to you. And there's good actors in that, and then there's primarily bad actors in that. And those are those merchant cash advance lenders we're talking about. We always say don't work with them. There are other options that you can look to, and especially the SBA. So the second you're 2 years in, the SBA opens up to you if your personal FICO score, the owner's personal FICO score is over 680. That is a great government program to give you a lot of money with a really long payback period. So it's a great solution when you're looking to grow and stabilize your business and kind of posture for the next stage, which is mid-growth. And that's where we might see some banks starting to lean in. It really just depends on the amount of revenue you're doing. I would say early growth and mid-stage growth, going to be very similar with capital options for you. It's just a matter of the rate and the amounts that you can get, but the same lenders will be those. And then the mature and expansion stage. This is usually when a bank might actually pay attention to you. Some cases they absolutely won't if your revenue is not over $10 million, but this is where you're now going to be able to secure like lower costs of capital and things of that nature. Where Flychain just fits into this equation is we can lend to businesses after they've been in business for 1 year and doing 250 grand in revenue. It's really on that smaller end of the spectrum. And that's when we can really lean in and set up that kind of safety net for you. That can be used both for safety net purposes, but also for some growth. Some other things that we really like to highlight. So is your capital strategy working? If you wanted to get a line of credit today, do you have your data in a position that a lender can look at that and say, yes, you're creditworthy, your financials look good, here's access to capital. Like that in particular can be pretty detrimental, and the Small Business Administration is a really good example. If you don't have clean financials for them, they're going to reject you. And so you just always want to give yourself the best shot at all working capital or growth capital. Some of the things that we'll also see around folks not getting access to capital, time in business is probably number one, personal FICO is another, but there are other things like insufficient funds in your bank account periodically. There are a lot of ways that you can put yourself in the best position to secure that capital down the line. And that's one thing that we like to do at Flychain is, while we have this financial platform and that's how we make our money and serve our customers, we love leaning in and consulting with our customers on the capital side because we don't want them to misstep. That oftentimes really shoots them in the foot, so to speak. And once again, I'm not going to go over this, but the one thing I really want to highlight on this slide is merchant cash advances. So that's what Derek was alluding to before. It's really the only option for working capital, accessing money to bridge a payroll or something. Things to look out for. There are huge broker fees that are often in this universe. So I'll give you a quick anatomy of what these credit products look like. If you ever need that, you can basically try and avoid it. Let's say you borrow $100,000. The payback period for one of these MCAs will be like 6 months. You have to pay us back in 6 months. That interest rate on 6 months will be like 30%. So you have to pay back $130,000 in 6 months. Pretty high. That's already a 60% interest rate annualized. Then you don't actually get $100,000. They're usually going to send you $90,000, take out a $10,000 broker fee, which is criminal. And then now you're giving $90,000, having to pay back $130 in 6 months. Now your interest rate's over 100%. I promise you, if you take one of these, you'll be out of business in 3 to 6 months. And that's that predatory cycle of debt that they try and get you on so that they can keep lending to you, bleed your company dry. It's how they make money, and it's the sad truth. So these are the things: origination fees, prepayment penalties, things of that, personal guarantees. Like, that's also something to really be careful about. These are things that can sink your business. And if you do have one of these on your balance sheet, come to us because we can refinance them out and kick them out and set you up with a credit product that makes a lot more sense for you. Once again, we got a question in here.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to jump in here too,
Yeah.
Ethan. I cannot express, and this isn't a matter of Ethan's in finance and he doesn't really like the way that those people handle things, and that's just not his bag. MCA, hard money loans, are evil. There is no justification for them. I can't believe that they're even legal, but it is a payday loan for your business, and it is meant to keep you in a trap, in just a constant loop. And you're working for the finance company. They are loan sharks, and it's terrible. So I've actually had, I like to, when something comes up, I like to make a video, post it on the group. I've not been able to make a video about this without going back and watching the video and thinking, like, I sound like a raving lunatic because it makes me so angry, because I've seen so many businesses across several industries make this mistake. And this is probably the biggest thing to having your financial ducks in a row, is to avoid having to sell your soul to the devil, because that's what these MCA hard money loans are.
Yeah, I appreciate you jumping in there. And like I said, like, Flychain does a lot, right? We clean up your books and everything, but one of the big things we wanted you to come away from on this conversation is there are capital options for you that are fair. They're just, you have to work with kind of folks that understand the industry and are in it for the right reasons. We actually don't make any money lending. We do that purely as a value add to our customers, because they're good businesses. You have good margins. They're generally pretty good businesses. You just have crazy cash flow issues. So we built this to solve those crazy cash flow issues, so you don't have to go to the only other option, which tends to be these evil predatory lenders. I think, just in terms of cruising here, this is what we wanted to give you or impart. We always like to be prescribing next steps, if that makes sense. And we put together a bit of a checklist today. And we'll send this afterward. And this checklist is really designed for you to look at the mirror, look yourself in the mirror and say, do I have answers to these? Do I actually understand what my profitability is? Do I have an accurate chart of accounts? Do I have a safety net set up with myself? And we just like to say, if there's a no on any of those, please reach out to us, because our goal is to help you spend more time caring about kiddos, caring about patients, and not having to worry about the things that we're the experts in. We don't pretend to be ABA therapy providers ourselves, but what we want to do is bring our expertise and bring what I would call enterprise institutional grade access to capital, all of the accounting, financial, data insights that candidly a lot of those big private equity backed companies have. They have that in place because they have the resources. we're bringing all of that to this smaller continuum of ABA therapy providers because you're the heroes in our eyes. That's the little kind of presentation and spiel I wanted to impart on you today. I would always say, if anyone is interested in a demo of the platform, how we do what we do, and really take this off of your plate, would love to spend time. We have over 100 ABA therapy providers on our platform and have funded over 200 historically. This is something that it's like our mission. It's our mission in life is to help folks like yourself understand this universe from that financial landscape. And the nice thing is you don't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. We're going to lead the horse to the water, so to speak. I'll pause there. Happy to answer any questions. And Derek, thanks again so much for setting this up. I didn't want to just talk and do a presentation for a whole hour.
Of course. No, we'll do another one too, Ethan. I think it would probably be good to just do an abbreviated demo of the platform, maybe, if you want to do that. So we'll put our heads together and schedule something for that too. But asking what the fees are for helping with the marketing and so finances. So we're not this morning's webinar was on the marketing stuff, but yeah. So tell us about your fees and your packages, and talk about the locations and how some ABAs will have multiple locations. They manage them as one business or separate businesses. Went through that with me. It was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I still sharing my screen? Yeah. Now you can maybe see me again. I don't know if I was on the video before. So yeah, our pricing, we try and make it very simple. So to access the credit and all of the things that we've talked about, we do require you to be a platform customer so that we can see your data and provide you really fairly priced working capital. So the rate that we charge on the capital itself is a maximum annual interest rate of 16%. And in terms, it's basically where the SBA is financing businesses, like our government. And so we have the really fair rates. I would say the next cheapest option is usually double what we charge from a rate standpoint. That said, the platform fee itself. So we have pricing, and the goal of our pricing is to meet you where you are. So we really have two pricing structures. There's those that are above $2 million in revenue, that are a little bit above that hump of getting started. That's what we charge, call it $1,500 a month going forward, and that's including everything. That said, if you're doing under $2 million, we usually charge somewhere between $500 and $1,000, just trying to lean in, help you, knowing that we're going to help you grow. What we also mentioned is multi-location. And I'll give that anecdote of one of our larger ABA therapy customers, because we kind of work across the continuum up to about $40 million in revenues where we really max out. We're kind of specialized in the small to medium sized universe. They had 8 locations and they had 8 different QuickBooks accounts run by 8 different people. It was like apples to oranges to dog food, as we say over here. And so in our system, you can actually toggle between all of those locations. We do your chart of accounts for each. So you have that apples to apples view. We'll usually see a parent entity where maybe equity is retained, or maybe you implement that in the future as you expand. So really the pricing there is we charge the rack rate kind of pricing, and then it's just $500 a month for each additional chart of accounts we're going to power. And usually when you're in that growth mode expanding, we try and make that almost like a no-brainer. And our pricing from a bookkeeping standpoint, it's generally cheaper than QuickBooks Plus a bookkeeper as it exists today.
Yeah, and it's really from my point of view, it's if you're in that revenue range, your services, if you can't afford the financial insights, if you can't afford to have the financial insights at that revenue range for what you guys are charging, that means that you need this service because something is off.
We had a few more questions in there. The other thing I like to just always talk about before I jump into those is think about our platform. Because we don't charge any origination fees, I would say 60% of all ABA therapy providers do access credit every year. And because the only option tends to be these merchant cash advances, 60% of our customers get these MCAs. They charge these crazy origination fees, high interest. If you were just looking at the origination fee and accessed credit one time in 12 months, it pays for the platform already. And that's not to say that the rate saving is already really good. So in terms of Celeste here, we've got question is difference between Flychain services, CPA. Great question. So we do your books. We're going to button up your books. We're more often than not working with an existing tax filing accountant, CPA. The reason for that is a lot of our customers might be in business for a while. They have a relationship with the CPA that's maybe developed tax strategy with them previously. One thing we always talk about as it relates to tax strategy, while we don't do it, it's not really healthcare specific. It's actually more how you as a small to medium-sized business owner file your personal taxes in concert with your business taxes to, optimize savings. And so I'd say 80% of our customers, we're working with their existing CPA. That's it. Many of our customers, and this is becoming more and more popular, are looking to switch. And we have a partner in this universe that specializes in small and medium-sized business tax strategy and tax filing. And why we're working with them is they give unfettered access and free consulting through the entire year. So it's a single filing expense like you would with any other CPA, but they do not charge you to meet once a month or once a quarter to develop that strategy. And so we picked them because our customers, you're new to the financial world, a lot of our customers are. We want to make sure that your hand is held. When it comes to accessing credit, we'll hold your hand. When it comes to tax filing, tax strategy, we have those partners that are willing to dedicate their time to make sure you're optimizing their service. So that's the line in the sand. We do the books, and we're liaising more often than not with that CPA and ensuring a very seamless tax filing experience because all the data is perfectly buttoned up for that tax filing. Trial period. So we don't have a trial period, but I like to say this. The way that our contracts are written, we don't charge an implementation fee. There's no onboarding fee. Onboarding, I always like to communicate this. It's very different working with Flychain than it is maybe switching your payroll or your billing, which switching those can feel like an organ transplant at times and could cause cash flow issues. And you have to retrain everyone in your org to use a new AMR as an example. We go in and we do a onboarding call. What are your bank accounts, payroll, EMR, corporate cards? We then get to work. And in 1 or 2 weeks time, we re-demo the platform for you with all of your live data. And so we charge monthly. It's month to month. There's no cancellation penalties. In terms of a trial period, we like to say, we'll go do the upfront work, not charge that implementation fee, get you on our platform. If you're not happy, cancel whenever you want. No strings attached. You can migrate all the data back to QuickBooks, but out of our plus 100 customers, that hasn't happened yet. I always like to flag that as well.
So one of the things that when we're going through, I do a lot of the organizational strategy stuff with people that are starting their businesses up, or they're just trying to get organized. I've got 20 employees. I can't seem to scale past here. I'm working 100 hours a week. What do I do next? And it's, well, you need to get organized. And build your organizational chart, build your role descriptions, and just do the E-Myth thing step by step and just put the business on a program, right? The Jenny Craig program, right, for business. One of the problems that we often find are when we're writing policy, we're developing out how the business is going to operate and what the operating system is for the business. I love that term because that's what it is. But the blindness to certain aspects of their financial profile often takes a lot of work and research to figure out like how we're going to write a policy. For example, part-time RBTs. What is our minimum monthly RBT hours that we're going to have, right? So if we do have anybody who's part-time, what is their minimum? And this seems like a simple question, like to figure out the answer to, but you want to make it low enough where you're going to have plenty of availability for RBTs to come work for you. But you don't want to have a situation where, like I did with one client who figured out that they're paying about $400 a month just for the pleasure of having these 3 or 4 RBTs working for them because they didn't know their monthly cost. So the question that got posed to me that we had to go in and do all kinds of research on and figure out was, how much does it cost you a month to have an RBT working for your company, whether they do anything or not, right? Your email subscriptions, your user licenses on practice management systems, your benefits, your whatever it might be, right? Having a user for them on your access control system or whatever it might be, all of those costs put together, how much is it? And then figure out what your hourly profitability is from that person. Then you can decide, like, where is our break even, and do we want to break even, or do we want to make sure that we have a certain amount of income every month from these people? And that's how you decide your minimum. In Flychain, I know we have our overall financial plan, but what kind of visibility and customization can be done for specific things that owners want to have visibility into? Like, how deep can you go to expose that information for executive decisions?
We can get as deep as the data allows us to. And the cool thing is we've spent the last 3 years building this financial infrastructure to bring all that data together. And so just some examples. We're now benchmarking with our customers. And so a good example of that would be, hey, let's look at your financial metrics, how much you're paying your staff as an example, RBT as well as versus BCBAs, just using that as an example. So we love breaking out like operational payroll from clinical payroll, and then even getting more granular on clinical payroll. What are those RBTs versus BCBAs? Then what we'll do, and this is that KPI, key performance indicator, right? What we'll do every month is we'll say, okay, let's have a conversation. Once we button up all your books, get it IRS compliant. Now let's go deeper. Let's look at all of the different service lines that you have as it relates to the different payers that you have and look at profitability there. From a KPI standpoint, one example has been we have market data. So now we know, generally speaking, like geographically, like what should you be paying your employees? And one target that we'll set up, and we'll bring both the market data as well as your own targets. So one example would be like, I never want my payroll to be more than 56% of my cost of goods sold. That's like just a metric that we've stumbled upon. Now we can set up a guardrail and say, you as the owner want to keep that between 52 and 58 as an example. Every month, we're going to show you this report based on your financials and how you perform that month against those metrics. So it's now not only showing you how you're stacking up against the market, but also your own goals. And those own goals are important because they're going to change over time. Your marketing budget's going to change over time. All of these different things are going to be in flux. And so having your own guardrails in place to make sure that you're achieving those. And if you're not achieving them, know that, okay, like I was under the ball on this one. I need to figure out how to improve that down the line. So there's a lot of customization that can go in, and it all starts. I feel like I'm like a broken record, but it all starts with just like getting the clean books and the data and the infrastructure so that we can start getting these insights. And right now, we don't see our customers being able to do that easily. It's all these disparate systems, bank, payroll, billing, corporate cards. And when you are looking at that without having it in one singular place, it becomes much more difficult. Looks like we got some more questions in here as well.
Yeah. So Blake wanted to know about the QuickBooks thing. Yeah. So along those lines, so if somebody's got QuickBooks desktop or online, whatever, and considering that some of them are doing their payroll through QuickBooks, through that payroll system, what does that migration process look like as far as your replacement of QuickBooks?
Yeah. So it's very simple. If you're on QuickBooks, I always like to mention the senior leadership at QuickBooks is actually investors in Flychain. I really like to emphasize that because QuickBooks is not HIPAA compliant, nor do they ever intend to be. And so they actually run away from healthcare. And that's why it's shocking to us that everyone is on QuickBooks and it's a square peg in a round hole. So first, we go into your QuickBooks. If you have a QuickBooks, our human bookkeepers, everyone gets assigned 2 bookkeepers, actually, head of bookkeeping and another redundant bookkeeper. They're doing all the work for you. So when we onboard you and migrate you off of QuickBooks, we're going to go in there. We're going to go and then ultimately clean it up, migrate you over. You're not having to do anything. And then your data lives in that system. In certain examples, I'd say maybe 5 to 10% of probably 5% of our customers, they do payroll. They use like the QuickBooks payroll solution. They can just keep that in place because when working with Flychain, you're never having to change anything in your organization. So if you're using QuickBooks payroll, you can keep using that. But more often than not, we're seeing our customers use like ADP, Gusto. We're agnostic to whatever payroll provider you're using. So that's really it. And I always like to say, like, all the data that we then build in our system, you can always port that back to QuickBooks if it wouldn't work out. It's all interoperable. But the long and short is you do not need QuickBooks anymore when you work with Flychain. It's probably the tying a bow on that, if you will.
Yeah, and keep your information out of QuickBooks as far as client names and stuff like that for sure.
That's another thing we like to stress is as we're pulling this data in, we're calculatedly not pulling in any patient data, right? We're pulling in like claims, dates, and cash flows, not any patient information, because candidly, you don't need to do that. We want to keep that separate.
Celeste also has a question, and this is common across all things, right? All services that you're pulling into your business. We need to have, our compliance program. We need to have, employees. We need to have our financial management system, operating system in place. Where do you tend to like to start with businesses that don't have any startup capital? They need to get some revenue flowing. What's a good kind of entry plan for Flychain?
Yeah, I would say it's never too early to at least talk with us. And one thing we like to do is help you think through that capital strategy, knowing that if you can execute on that, you'll be a great customer of ours in the long haul. So I would say if you're a net new business and haven't started yet, probably not the right time for Flychain. And because there's no data to keep track of, there's nothing to lend against, and there's no valuation to provide. I would say after a few months of getting up and running and generating revenue, that's when we can start even leaning in to do some financing, as an example. That's when we can start doing the books and really start piecing your organization together and setting you up with a foundation day one that is institutional grade versus a lot of folks that we'll see using Excel and flying by the seat of their pants. And that can get you pretty far, actually. But it's our opinion is that if you do things right day one, you've trained yourself how to do it right. You're looking at your data the right way. And it just really positions yourself for success. So always happy to chat. Would love to chat with anyone just to introduce ourselves and obviously advise on any of the capital stuff. But a couple of months of just generating revenues is usually like when our earlier customers start seeing the value of Flychain.
Awesome. Perfect. So the bookkeepers do the work for you. Does this mean that they will input all bills and receipts? So would we not need an in-house accountant position?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So the cool thing about like bills, receipts, all this stuff, we see it all, right? And so if there an invoice is submitted, we see that in your bank data, right? We're going to see that in all of these different things that we onboard and integrate with. And so the whole goal is you no longer have to pay attention to your books ever again. You never have to input anything in your org. We handle all of that. You can consider our bookkeepers in Flychain as part of your team because they are your books. But at the end of the day, you're never going to have to do that again. And so to answer that question, yeah, no longer need someone doing that. And more often than not, we were seeing, like I said, the owners, the administrators, the practice management folks, they're the ones doing it. And this is blocking and tackling. And it's usually something that falls to the bottom of what your priorities are, because we know that hiring and running these things is very difficult. So we just want to take that completely off of your plate.
Yeah, and the working with your CPA partner in conjunction with all of this, and you guys having your monthly reviews, and then maybe a quarterly review with a CPA who can tell the business owner, like, hey, you could probably, if you got something that you want to invest in, let's talk about it, right? You've got $40,000 we need to spend. Otherwise, you're going to be paying a bunch of taxes on it. Let's figure out how to reinvest that. So while on one side, reducing the amount of time that you're doing the monkey work, entering all the bills and doing all that stuff, you're increasing the amount of time that you're able to spend looking at actual EDS, that executive decision support, where you actually have information and data where you can go in and make a good decision and make the right choices for your business. And then probably overall, I would imagine overall, you're reducing the amount of time overall while increasing your time to work on your business instead of just in your business. Really brilliant. I'll look forward to doing our next webinar. I think we should probably do a demo of the actual platform itself, but really impressive, you guys. So how do we get a hold of you if we want to engage with Ethan and start talking about it, whether we're just starting up or we're already operating, want to get moved out of QuickBooks? What do we do?
I just threw my email in this chat. I will handle every phone call. It's like why I get up in the morning is talking with you folks. So please shoot me an email. I will answer that immediately and hop on a demo call. Like we love, this is, like I said, it's why we get up in the morning, is working with folks like yourself and helping you support your business so you can thrive and help more people. That's our goal. You can always reach out on our website too, but that's my email if you want to get straight to the source.
Awesome. We'll include that on the recording as well. And then you also had a worksheet, like kind of a checklist. Is that something that we can download?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to follow up with that, and you can download that, directly from there. And we'll also send over a little product guide as well, just to summarize the services. And that's what the demo then is really just a walkthrough of all of those products summarized in the product deck.
Perfect. We'll make sure all that stuff's in the comments. Thanks, everybody. You guys are awesome. We love you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Ethan, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. It was a pleasure chatting with everyone here today, and appreciate the interaction and would love to chat. So appreciate your time.
Do it again soon. Thank you.
All right, take care.
You're already doing the work, investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The EBCBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.